5. Employees believed they were being required to do more with less or more with the same pay. The top 5 reasons that managers resisted change were: 1. Loss of power, responsibility, or resources. 2. Overburdened with current responsibilities and workload. 3. Lacked awareness of the need for change. 4. Lacked the skills needed to manage the change. Believed they were unprepared to manage the change with employees. 5. Felt fearful or uncertain about the changes being made. Although this data provides a general understanding of the primary cause for resistance to change, the data doesn't reveal why a particular individual may be resistant to a change. Therefore, several techniques can be used to identify and manage resistance from an employee. Identify the barrier point to this change. To begin the process of managing resistance, a manager must first consider which elements or building blocks of the ADKAR model are currently strong or weak for an individual. In other words, what is the barrier point to change for this person? For example, you would not want to use resistance management steps that focus on desire if the barrier point for that employee was knowledge or ability. First, assess where that person stands in terms of the ADKAR model. If desire is determined to be the barrier point to change, then the following techniques will be useful. Listen and understand objections. A critical first step when creating desire to change is to stop talking and start listening. Supervisors and managers who aren't skilled in managing resistance tend to begin with attempts at persuasion. If that doesn't work, they often resort to threats. Yet in many cases, employees simply want to be heard and to voice their objections. Understanding these objections can often provide a clear path toward resolution. It's useful to ask, what are your specific objections to this change? Or, what are your biggest concerns with this change? And then to listen to the employee. Often the resistance isn't about the change itself, but rather how the change will impact them personally. Remove obstacles. Obstacles to change may relate to family, personal issues, physical limitations, or money. Managers must fully understand the individual situation with this employee. What may appear to be resistance or objections to the change may be barriers that the employee can't see past. Identify the obstacles clearly. Determine ways that the business may be able to address these personal barriers or assist the employee in thinking through solutions to these concerns. A vice president for a public services company was resisting a change that involved moving to another role in the business. When the CEO asked point blank what the barrier to change was, the VP responded that the work location for the new position would require an additional 1-hour commute on top of his existing 45-minute drive. This would directly impact his ability to spend more time at his son's after-school activities, a recent commitment he had made to his family. The resistance to change in this example was not about the change, but the impact that change had on the employee's personal situation. Too often managers don't solicit from employees their specific objections to the change in order to identify obstacles. Often, these barriers can be removed without adversely impacting the change. Make a personal appeal. Some managers can create a desire to change by making a personal appeal and leveraging their relationship with employees. A personal appeal works best with honest, open relationships, where there is a high degree of trust and respect. A personal appeal from a supervisor may sound like, "I believe in this change. It's important to me. I would like your support. You would be helping me by making this change work." With this approach, the implied message is often that the supervisor will take care of or look out for the employee during the transition. Exercise caution when using this approach. Make sure that you can follow through with this implied commitment. Negotiate. In very special cases, such as acquisitions or mergers, resistance can be managed through a process of negotiation. In these circumstances, the organization has decided that a particular person is essential for the transition and is willing to bargain with money or advancement to acquire his or her support. This could include increasing their compensation, offering a promotion to a position they desire, or creating a bonus program so they are directly rewarded for the successful completion of the change. In some cases, the person may be rewarded for staying with the company just through the transition, and then they receive a severance package that has been negotiated up front. Provide simple, clear choices and consequences. Building desire is ultimately about choice. Managers can facilitate this process by being clear about the choices employees have during change. It's necessary to communicate in simple and clear terms what the choices and consequences are for each employee. By providing simple and clear choices, along with the consequences of those choices, managers can put the ownership and control back into the hands of employees. Desire to participate and support a change is an employee's decision that managers can enable by clearly stating the options. Hold employees accountable. A business manager must be able to hold employees accountable for their performance as it relates to a change in the business, especially when resistance to a change is having a direct impact on the business and on other employees. Managers must be trained and empowered to use whatever means the organization has available to hold employees accountable for their actions and work performance in support of the change. Managers should understand the corrective action process and how they need to work with HR to resolve persistent performance issues. Convert the strongest dissenters. Managers can also manage resistance on a group level by targeting a strong and vocal dissenter. A strong dissenter can become your strongest advocate. A strong dissenter can be as vocal in their support as they were in their resistance. For example, nearly 2,000 years ago on the road to Damascus, Paul, one of the strongest persecutors of early Christians, became one of the most enduring and powerful evangelists for the early Christian church. You most likely know someone in your group or department who is the loudest complainer, or the person who is always first to point out what is wrong. These individuals dominate the conversations at lunch or on breaks. When one-on-one time is invested with such individuals to address their resistance to change, these outspoken employees can become open advocates for the change, and their opinions can positively influence many other employees. Managers and supervisors play a key role in building desire with employees. They are the center point for those critical conversations about a change. They remove barriers and manage resistance. Last but certainly not least, managers and supervisors demonstrate commitment to the change through their own behavior. Their actions provide a visible model that can build strong support for the change. Tactic 3. Assess risks and anticipate resistance. A well-rounded change management approach includes a process for assessing risks and mitigating those risks to reduce resistance to the change. Most change management methods include readiness assessments to assist with this process. These assessment tools help identify potential problem areas before encountering resistance. By addressing these risks or gaps ahead of time, resistance in some cases can be avoided. This notion of proactively taking steps to prevent or lessen resistance to change is inherent in good change management approaches and directly impacts employees' desire to support a change. Two types of assessments are useful to determine risks and identify gaps: change assessments and organizational readiness assessments. Change assessments evaluate the nature of the change from the perspective of the organization, and specifically from the perspective of different groups. The purpose of change assessment is to develop an overall view of the size and scope of the change. This assessment evaluates the impact on different groups. By comparing the future state of the change with the current state, you can see the overall gap or transition that's required for different areas in the organization. When combined with an organizational readiness assessment, you can begin to identify potential areas of resistance and unique challenges for the organization. Organizational readiness assessments are used to evaluate the overall readiness of the organization to change. Some organizations are change resistant, while others are change ready. The combination of change assessments and readiness assessments allows you to evaluate the overall impact this change will have on the organization. This type of analysis can bring to the surface unique challenges for a specific group and will allow the project team to identify potential areas of resistance. For example, a change assessment may suggest a significant impact on the sales group. while the organizational readiness assessment indicates a culture and history in the sales division that is rigid and change-resistant. Special tactics will need to be developed to address the potential resistance in this area. In terms of creating desire, these change and organizational assessments are proactive planning tools to identify and mitigate resistance early in the process.